Hi, this is Lawrence Fleckerbill. You are listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson, the reminder that the next edition of TV Confidential will premiere next week on this station at the usual time. Please join us as we welcome back Hank Garrett, the actor known around the world as Officer Nicholson on Car 54, Where Are You? In the meantime, Chuck Harter is with us, along with our guest, Burt Kearns. Burt's latest book, Shemp, the biography of the Three Stooges, Shemp Howard, the face of film comedy, not only takes a deep dive into the life and career of the man once voted the ugliest face in Hollywood, but is the very first book to debunk many of the myths surrounding Shemp, including some myths that were perpetuated by Mo Howard himself. Shemp, available wherever books are sold through our friends at Roman and Littlefield. You can also find it at Amazon.com where books are sold online. As we went to break, Burt, Chuck, and I were talking about how Shemp, his brother Curly Howard, and Larry Fine all died because of cerebral hemorrhages, and how the causes of each of their deaths were traceable to all the various blows to the head that each of them took as part of the Three Stooges act, not only during the time they filmed their 20-minute shorts at Columbia, but during the 7 to 8 months each year when the Stooges made live appearances at various venues across the country, and how the blows that Larry, Shemp, and Curly each took on stage contributed to each of their conditions, and how Mo, by comparison, was the only one of the Stooges who did not die from a cerebral hemorrhage, in large part because once the Stooges left Ted Healy, Mo became the one in the act who administered all the blows. As we pick up the conversation.
Because of this, I got to tell you, I get heat from a lot of the Stooges cult, the Stooges fans. They don't like to hear this. The book is fine, they say, that he's always putting down Mo. Didn't mean to do that. I was just going where the facts led. Out of all the groups in popular entertainment for the 20th century that have a great following today, I don't think any of them are as clouded with myth and misinformation as the Three Stooges. And I was just cutting through all of this and trying to find the truth about that. Getting past the legend into the facts.
Yeah, and in fairness to Mo, and this touches on what we've been talking about the last few minutes, Burt, they made most of their money from the personal appearances. And it was Mo who organized who scheduled all the personal appearances, and so he made sure that there was always money coming in for the three of them above and beyond whatever they were getting from the studio. So, and he took care of their taxes. He managed the group and he managed the finances, and he gets credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do that well managing the finances. He never asked for a raise. They were always on a year-to-year contract, it seemed, at Columbia. But one thing, you have to remember, these guys weren't living in studio apartments with a hot plate, across from a billboard blowing smoke rings in their window. These guys were living in Toluca Lake. They had nice houses. They were living in the same neighborhood as Bob Hope and Bing Crosby.
Yeah.
And, Shemp, at one point, to be closer to his son and newborn baby, he rented out his house and bought a small apartment building around the corner so they could, be closer to his kids. So they made money. They didn't do poorly.
Yeah, they were not the Dick Van Dyke character in the comic.
Exactly. But again, they weren't living in Beverly Hills and in mansions. They were working. They were working actors through their careers. But they were working and they were doing well. It was just that Mo didn't know when to stop. When Curly had his first stroke on the road, he kept him working. And Mo writes in his book, Mo figured out, they're in New York, Curly is, drooling from the corner of his mouth. They're keeping him on stage. And he writes this in his book. I figured out that his problem was loneliness. And he sets up Curly with, again, the exact facts in the book, with like the daughter of the theater owner. And within 3 weeks, Curly's married again. It was that sort of thing. When Curly had his debilitating stroke, it was on the set of one of their shorts. They were ready to go in and do a pie fight scene.
Right.
They call everybody on the set. Everybody moves except Curly. Bo looks around and sees Curly sitting in the director's chair. His chin is down. He's drooling. He obviously has suffered a severe stroke. Mo went over to his brother and cried. He realized what was happening with poor Curly. Then he had somebody call him a taxi to bring him home, and Mo went out and finished the scene. These are old school vaudeville guys for the show. The show must go on, and that's what they did, no matter what.
One last thing on the slaps, and there's a 1949, I think it's an Ed Wynn show. It's an early live show, and the Shemp Stooges are on, and they have a routine, and they're filmed pretty close up, live television, and kinescopes now, and Mo is slapping the two of them. Now, there's no sound effects, so it's not as funny as the shorts, but even on the primitive kinescope, you can hear whack, whack, whack. He had to hit him hard enough for some sort of to react for the microphones on the TV show, and you can see it. And that's 49, so go another 6 years live with Shemp. There you go.
Yeah, that's what happened to Shemp. It's funny, when the Three Stooges had their renaissance, when it was Mo, Larry, and Joe DeRita, suddenly they were stars for kiddies on afternoon television. And you can see it on YouTube. There's an interview that somebody did with Mo, Larry, and Joe DeRita, where Mo is explaining, because there were complaints from mothers and complaints around the country about the violence of the Three Stooges. And Mo's saying, no, now kids, you have to understand, we don't really hit each other. If we do a poke, I'll show you here, we pretend to poke him in the eyes. I'm actually touching his forehead. We don't really do the slaps. And they were trying to let kids know that this wasn't real. When in fact, on stage, it was real. They were taking their hits.
And I remember at one point I paused, reading your book, Burt, because Shemp is doing the physical stuff both for the movies and for the personal appearances. He's 55, 56. He was 60 years old and still doing this. He was doing a lot of physical stuff that is not normally for a person nearing 60. It's for a young man.
Well, most definitely, and that's part of why Mo was criticized for that. He didn't give them a break. And by the time Shemp had joined the Stooges full time in the early 1950s, the shorts weren't as popular as they once were. Now movie theaters were showing double features, and the shorts budgets were getting lower and lower. They at one point they may have worked on 4 days or even a week on a single short. Now it might just be a day. They were cobbling together old works and throwing in a couple of scenes here and there and turning it into something new. And then they would hit the road. But this time, instead of traveling to a wonderful vaudeville theater in New York or in Chicago, they're in a station wagon driving through North Dakota to play at a high school.
Right.
And then getting back the following week to get back on the set. It was money in the bank, but it just wasn't giving these guys the break. And I think it's undeniable that it did lead to an early death for Shemp.
Yes, that's very true. And but what the great thing about the three? Well, I have two things. Let me go to the first one. I have two things. Your criticism, Burt, from the Stooge cult, ignore. Because in many fans of celebrated artists, they have a wish dream of who they want them to be. And when they hear different, they freak out. Take the John Lennon fans who find out he wasn't the Imagine guy the entire time. And so whoever writes this, well, hey, how can you say this? You were writing what you found, what you felt, and basically the truth. So, come on. You have to be true to yourself, and you've turned out a great book. And if Mo comes across a little bad, that's balanced with his drive to keep the act going and the much good that he did. So don't take any of their yipes to heart.
Thanks for that, Chuck. Thank you. Because also, they were throughout a close family. That's another thing to do. There wasn't this resentment that was in any way apparent while they were alive. They were very close with each other. The families were close, and Shemp loved his brother and worried about his brother.
Well, no, he did. And the other thing I wanted to say is, all these years later, and it's mostly streaming now, what comedy act of the great days of the 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s is the survivors? It's the Stooges.
Yeah.
And I've always felt it's because the Stooges are quick, fast, quick cuts, larger-than-life, in-your-face characters. Where Laurel and Hardy, great as they are, they're too slow. Abbott and Costello, there's too many musicals and other plots in the way. Martin and Lewis, great, but their movies were never as good as them live and so forth. So it's funny, back in the day, the Stooges were somewhat considered a low comedy act, and they're the survivors, meaning they have legs, and they really were great. So, good for the Stooges.
You compare them to the Marx Brothers. I mean, the Marx Brothers have their audience, but, nothing like the Three Stooges. The fact that the Stooges made these bite-sized 15 to 18-minute shorts, I think, is also part of it too. Because you're right, there wasn't a lot of broccoli in it. You didn't have to sit through a song and dance film. You just got to see the Three Stooges. And for all the so-called violence, these guys were, again, great vaudevillian comic actors. Their timing was impeccable.
Right.
The fact that that Shemp, the characters were all very different, and although Shemp is, I think it was a very thankless role that he took when he rejoined the Stooges, because how could you replace Curly? I talk about that often, about how when I was a kid, when these Three Stooges films first started showing up on television, Screen Gems for the first maybe 100 or so, because there were so many shorts they had, were putting out Moe, Larry, and Curly. And Curly, kids didn't know that these films were from the 40s or from the 30s. They just knew that Curly was one of us. We loved Curly.
Yeah.
Nobody was like Curly. And then all of a sudden they started putting in these Shemp ones. And people were like, who's Shemp? Who's this man? We want Curly. That's this scary-looking guy. And so there was no way that Shemp, could win on this. So I think, it was really nice of him, I think, to do that, to keep the act going for his brother. And it was only later, I also mentioned that, it was only later that we began to appreciate Shemp. The Curly shuffle and a lot of, the frat boys and the bros all loved Moe, Larry, and Curly, because it's sort of, rah, rah, let's go get drunk and take our shirts off and roll out on the floor. But after, the 1960s, you get into the 70s, we had Watergate and disco and punk. You start saying, wow, Shemp is cool, man. Shemp is punk. We dig Shemp, and I think Shemp got more of an older, I don't like to say intellectual audience, but more of the outsiders dug Shemp.
If there's one takeaway about Shemp that you want readers to get from your book, Burt, what would that be?
It would be that here is a great unexplored talent that is open for exploration to anyone. Go online and find the Shemp pictures, find the Shemp shorts, and you're going to see an unsung star in his own right. I mean, you look at films, everything from Hell's a Poppin' to Damon Runyon's Butch Mind's the Baby. That was the film on which, as part of the publicity, he was named the ugliest man in Hollywood. An honor that he felt was an honor. He loved it. He said, "Yes, I am the ugliest. Thank you." Great. There's a lot of great Shemp stuff out there, both as a supporting player and as a star in his own right. I think I discovered a lot of Shemp. And that was part of the fun of this, is watching all of his shorts and finding films that he had maybe a scene in that just made the whole movie.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
Hi, this is Jim McCrell, and you're listening to TV Confidential, and you might learn something.
So you are the detectives?
Yes, sir, sure fire.
Never miss.
We never sleep.
If you like us,
Tell others.
and if you don't like us,
Keep it to yourself.
well, you look like two capable men.
Sure fire.
Never miss.
Nix, that was our entrance.
Now remember.
Shemp, exclamation point, the biography of the Three Stooges, Shemp Howard, the face of film comedy, by Burt Kearns, available wherever books are sold through Roman and Littlefield. You can also find it Amazon.com, where books are sold online. For more on Burt Kearns, Burt Kearns, B-U-R-T, BurtKearns.com. Burt, this was fun. Come back and visit us again one of these days.
Hey, anytime. And Chuck, great to get me back in touch after all these years.
Yeah, same to you. We'll have to have some lunch soon and talk about I, Elvis.
A reminder that The Jeffersons by Elva Green, available Bear Manor Media, Amazon.com, wherever books are sold online. For more on Elva, PinInTheTush.com. Ed Robertson, Beth Tony Figueroa, Donna Allen, Phil Grace, and Susan Silver. Thank you so much for listening. Stay healthy, stay safe. We'll talk to you next time on TV Confidential.